Hello everyone! Today we're going to be talking about the new DC Comics reboot that was just revealed recently. So, Dawn of the DCU is the new reboot that we're getting. Surprise, surprise, DC is rebooting again. No one saw this coming. It's not like DC and Marvel do this like once every 2 years, or sometimes even sooner than that. DC has had reboots pretty recently with Dark Knight's Death Metal and then 5G/Future State. They've been rebooting a lot. And we got some details for this one. The funny thing is, with the details of the reboot, is it sounds kind of familiar. So, Dawn of the DCU, it's going to take place right after the end of Dark Crisis. Dark Crisis is the current big storyline going on that leads into this reboot from Joshua Williamson. Issue number 7 comes out towards the end, I think maybe December. And January is when we are going to get the actual Dawn of the DCU. So all the current storylines that are happening with the books that are currently out are going to be wrapping up in December. And then January, we're going to get the Dawn of the DCU stuff. So the big thing that we got is we kind of got who are going to be the main players in DC after this reboot, because we got some variant covers from Dan Mora that show these characters. So those characters are Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, Flash, who I'm assuming is Barry Allen because of how the rest of the roster looks, but who knows, it could be Wally West, but most likely Barry Allen. Billy Batson back as Shazam, which is interesting because they just replaced him with Mary Marvel, and now he's immediately coming back as Billy Batson. Like, they just replaced him not that long ago, like really recently, and now he's back. Guess she didn't sell well. Aquaman and Nightwing along with Starfire and Cyborg, signifying that the Wolfman Perez new Teen Titans roster is coming back. So that's who was on those variant covers. So it seems that they're all going to be big players in Dawn of the DCU. It's funny because with the 5G/Future State, we got a bunch of new characters introduced, and characters that, they're like, oh, these are going to be important in the DCU, everyone's going to love them, they're all these like very diverse characters. No one cared about them, they weren't written well, and now we're getting rebooted back to classic characters. Sounds kind of familiar, right? Sounds kind of like what happened with New 52 and Rebirth. You know how, like, with New 52, they changed a lot of characters and a lot of the histories were destroyed and people were like, I don't really like this. So Rebirth was like, okay, we're going to reinstate, like, a more classic roster and bring back those characters. And yeah, aren't you guys excited? We're just going in circles at this point. It's the same thing that happened at the end of the New 52, well, New 52 and then DCU, because it was the DCU, that DCYOU, when they, which was like sort of soft reboot they did after New 52, that then led into Rebirth, because the DCU changed a lot of characters, like with Superman, where he was wearing a t-shirt, had a buzz cut, and was riding a motorcycle, and lost a lot of his powers. So that's kind of what's happening here, where it's like, oh man, these changes we made, no one likes and aren't selling, even though we said they're going to be good and important, so let's go back to what works. It's almost like if you would have stuck with the original vision of Rebirth, what Jeff Johns had going on there, we wouldn't be in this mess, but we're in this mess. It's very dumb, because Rebirth was great. I loved Rebirth. Man, that first initial launch of Rebirth, the first few months after Rebirth came out, it was amazing. It was a golden age. It was so good. Like, that was the best era of comics, in my opinion, since I've been, like, reading new issues, because when I was a little kid, I mainly read back issues and trade paperbacks. It wasn't until New 52 that I actually started, like, going every Wednesday and reading new comics. So Rebirth has been, like, the best era since I've been reading new comics. And yeah, it sucks that it was so short-lived, because then you had Bendis come in and he wanted to do his own thing, and you had Scott Snyder wanting to do his big plans with Death Metal, and you also had Tom King, who also wanted to do stuff like with Heroes in Crisis. So you had too many cooks in the kitchen, and also on top of that, Doomsday Clock kept getting delayed, which was, going to lay the plans forward for the future of Rebirth. And so it sucks that all that happened, because imagine if DC would have had some patience and just trusted in Jeff Johns and Gary Frank and let Doomsday Clock, like, pave the way, because I thought Doomsday Clock was great. I know some people don't like it, but I think it was great, and I thought it laid a great foundation for the future. But sadly, we didn't get that, and now we're here where we're getting another reboot. Another detail we got for this reboot is that Nightwing's going to be a big focal point. Like, on the cover, he's there looking kind of cosmic. I hope that's not the case. I'm I'm happy for him to be a focal point. I love Dick Grayson. I think he is I think he's a great character, and I think he gets disrespected by DC far too much. He's one of my favorites. but I don't want him to be like a cosmic entity or anything. I hope nothing like that happens. But who knows? Maybe something cosmic just happens at the end of issue 7, then he's back to normal Dick Grayson. I hope so. We'll see though, because it is getting about like in the cycle of how DC treats Dick Grayson. We're at the point where something really stupid should happen that should change him from being normal Nightwing, because we had Nightwing and then his identity got revealed in Forever Evil, and so then he became a secret agent, which while it was interesting, it still was like, I would have preferred him to be Nightwing. And then he got reinstated as Nightwing again. It was like, yeah, good. And then he got shot in the head and lost all his memories and became Rick Grayson. And now he's back to being Nightwing again. Although the story sucks, at least he's Nightwing. So we're back at the part where it's like, oh, something really stupid should happen to Dick Grayson. So maybe that'll happen. But we'll see. I'm happy that he's the focal point of this. At least that's what it looks like. DC lately with their reboots has tended to like focus on someone. With like Dark Knight's Death Metal, it was Wonder Woman was like the focal point. With Rebirth, it was Wally West. Now it seems like Nightwing's going to be the focal point of Dawn of the DCU, and I'm happy about that. So we'll see how that goes. I'm happy that we're getting the new Teen Titans roster back. I think that's great. Another thing that's similar to Rebirth, where when Rebirth happened, they brought back one of the old Titans rosters, which is funny that it's happening again. Cyborg being on Titans is great because they've been trying to make him fit in the Justice League ever since New 52, and it does not work. He does not work with those characters. He's just a glorified teleportation device. That's all he's used for. It's like, hey, we need a boom tube somewhere. Where's Cyborg? Or, oh, maybe we need to hack something. Like, Cyborg does not mesh well with those characters. He's not interesting there. He belongs to the Titans, and I'm happy to see him back. So I hope whoever they get to write it actually knows how to use him, because poor Cyborg has been wasted in the comics for years now. So yeah, to summarize what we have, DC is focusing on more classic characters now. They are going to relaunch in January, and it looks like Nightwing's going to be a focal point of the relaunch. My problem with this is it doesn't sound like there's going to be much of a editorial or writer shakeup, and that's kind of depressing and doesn't give me much hope, because then what really are you rebooting? Because currently DC sucks. There are some good books. Like, I think Philip Kennedy Johnson's doing a great job in Action Comics. Chip Zdarsky's doing good on Batman. Ram V's doing good on Detective Comics. And there are other books that are good as well, but off the top of my head, those are some of the best ones. But there are also a lot of really bad books, and a lot of books that just aren't selling well and no one cares about. Like, Tom Taylor's Nightwing is horrible. Tom Taylor's Superboy or Superman Son of Kal-El is horrible. And there's a lot of books that are bad. Like, for instance, Superman Son of Kal-El. That book is getting so much coverage and so much advertising. It's everywhere. Action Comics almost never gets any advertising. DC doesn't push it at all. But the latest issue of Action Comics outsold by a lot, according to the data, because comic book sale data is a little like iffy. But from what we could tell, it outsold Superman Son of Kal-El by a lot, which is really surprising, because Action Comics is kind of like just kept in the closet, and DC doesn't really say much about it. But everywhere you turn, DC is promoting Superman Son of Kal-El. So that shows how bad that book is, because it's getting promoted everywhere and it's not selling. Unless you go on Tom Taylor's Twitter and then he's trying to convince you that I promise, guys, it's selling. But yeah, there needs to be an editorial shakeup, because clearly things are not great at DC right now. They also, something that's disturbing about this is Joshua Williamson is the one that's behind this whole reboot, but he's not really going to be doing much after the reboot, because a bunch of stuff got announced that he's going to be doing creator-owned stuff on Substack. So I don't know how much he'll be attached to DC after this, so it's kind of weird that the guy that's headlining your reboot is then kind of piecing out afterwards, or maybe he'll write one title or something. I don't know. It doesn't really sound like he's going to be involved with DC that much after this. So that doesn't sound good. And if that's the case, then who's going to be the creative lead for DC? The obvious choice is Jeff Johns. Now he's coming back with Justice Society of America. I would love that, but I don't think that's going to happen with what they did to him during Doomsday Clock and Rebirth, where they kind of undermined what he was trying to do. I don't think Jeff Johns really wants to come back and do all that. But who knows? Maybe he would. Now that the Dio's gone, maybe he would. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know who they get. Hopefully they get someone good. Yeah. I'm not sure what they're going to do, but Williamson being gone does not inspire a lot of confidence, considering he's the one that's orchestrating all this. So that's weird. But yeah, that's basically all the details we have on this. Now, as far as what I would do if DC was dumb enough to ask me to be like, hey, what should we do with this reboot? In my opinion, I think, number one, they should narrow it down to like a dozen or so books, because I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but I believe DC is publishing like around 30 titles right now, give or take a few, something like that. That's a lot. And a lot of those are not selling and no one cares about. Like, you have Jace Fox being Batman in, I think, like, New York or something, and no one cares about it. I don't know why that is a book. And it's called I Am Batman because he has to tell you he's Batman because no one buys him as Batman. There's a lot of books that it's like, why is this a title? What? You could have given this to a different character, or you could cut costs here. I would cut it down to like a dozen or so essential books. The books I would choose are Action Comics, Batman, Detective Comics, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash, Aquaman, Justice League, JSA, Titans, Shazam, and Nightwing. That's what I would initially focus on. Then you could expand later and like figure things out. But I think you need to get like those core characters. Notice I said 2 Batman books, Batman, Detective Comics, because Batman does sell. And he's what people want. So I think you could do 2 Batman books. Superman, I think you just need Action Comics. As much as I love Superman, he's my favorite character. He's not selling too great right now. I don't think you necessarily need Superman and Action Comics right now. Try to build them up with just Action Comics. Be like, Superman fans, go here. We got quality stories here. Another thing I would do, besides shrinking the line, is really focusing on the quality of art, because I think that's something that's missing from the big 2 a lot. If you go over to the DC or Marvel, you'll pick up a lot of their books, even their primo books, like their best titles, and you just open it up, and you're like, man, this looks like someone off Tumblr drew this. Like, this does not look good. Like, there are some great artists, but then a lot of times there are some artists that's like, what? You guys are the biggest comic book publishers in the world, and this is what's going on? What? How are DC and Marvel not affording good artists? So you shrink the line, cut some costs there, and then you spend that money on good artists. That's what I think they should do. Because that is like the first thing that draws your eye when you're going to buy a new comic, is how's it look. And I'm not talking about like a variant cover, because that happens all the time where it's like, oh man, this cover's sick. Then you open it up and it's like, oh, the interiors look nothing like the cover. And I think that's a way they could get up a leg on Marvel too, because DC has, I feel like, been a bit more consistent with having better artists than Marvel. For Marvel for a while has just not cared. Like, they're just like, we got a few good guys, like Marco Cicchetto's amazing, but for the most part, they just kind of throw anyone on anything, and DC's kind of like that now too, but they used to not be as much. So I think that would be something that DC should really focus on, is actually hiring great artists on these books and getting them in there. But yeah, those are the 2 main points I would have. And also, of course, having someone like a Jeff Johns that has a vision and loves these characters and to like headline what's going to happen. I'd also stay away from big universe-wide events for at least a year. I'd be like, we're not going to do any big universe-wide stuff. Let's just focus on the quality of these individual books and then see what happens. But yeah, that's what I would do. Shrink the line to your core characters. Then you could later, after you focus on that and actually build up the quality of that, you could like expand a little bit, get some weirder books, like have a Swamp Thing or a Jonah Hex or something like that. And also, like, you could keep Black Label around and like cycle through with just mini and maxi series of like interesting things there. That works as well. And then also, of course, focus on the artists, because I think that's something that's missing a lot from the big 2. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think of this DC Universe reboot? And if you were in charge of it, what would you do? What would be your focal points? Because like I said, my focal points are shrinking the line, and focusing on those core characters, and bringing in really good artists. Spending the money on the artists, because that's what will get people to really read the comics. Of course, you need good writers, but I think the artist is a big thing that's lacking from the big 2 right now. But anyways, and those artists are out there clearly. It's just DC doesn't want to spend the money on the page, right? Like, there are great artists out there, just DC doesn't want to spend the money. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.